So we were understanding about the major demands of the people. Okay, the people were demanding for their political equality and the freedom. That means every adult should get the right to vote. Okay, so the next point we'll see, in some countries only people owning property had the right to vote. In the last slide only I explained you people, only the prosperous people of the society, that is only the rich people of the society had got the right to vote. That too only the men, not the women. So that is a reason often women did not have a chance to vote. So they started to neglect women. So that's the reason, the major demand of the people to have the political equality and the, the freedom or the equality among the people. So that's the reason here we can see, the women, all the people are, all the women are struggling for the equality for women, right to vote. Okay guys, next we'll see that, yes, in United States of America, the blacks all over the country could not exercise the right to vote until 1965. So as I explained to people in the beginning only, what happens? In the America, they had lot of problem among the white and black. So that situation, what happened? The white people has got the much rights in the country than compared to the black people. So that's the reason in America the black people did not have voting right until 1965. From 1965 even they have got the right to vote. Okay, so you have already studied about all these things in your 7th and 8th standard, about Nelson Mandela, all those people. Okay, yes. Next we can see that those struggling for democracy wanted this right granted universally to all adults, men or women, rich or poor, white or black. So as I explained you people in the last slide also, what is that? The people were expecting the political equality and the freedom. Just remember, this is very much important. They were demanding for the equality. Okay, so they were expecting that right to vote for all the adults. All the adults should get right to vote irrespective of their gender. It may be men or women. Irrespective of their status. It may be rich or poor. Irrespective of their race, black or white. Or irrespective of their religion. They were expecting right to vote. Okay. Next. This is very much important concept. Guys, listen carefully. Universal adult franchise. I think we have already discussed this concept in the classroom also. Okay. This means universal adult franchise means it will give the right to vote for all the men or the citizens, the adult citizens, irrespective of their gender, irrespective of their status, irrespective of their race, irrespective of their religion, all those things. Okay, see here. The universal adult franchise gives the right to vote to all adult citizens. Okay, regardless of wealth, they may be rich or poor, income, whatever the earnings they are getting, gender, they may be men or women, social status, or the race, ethnicity, or any other restriction subject only to relatively minor expectations. So finally minor exemptions. So here what happens, all the adult citizens of the country will be having right to vote. That is what we'll call it as a universal adult franchise or universal suffrage. Guys, make a note of this, universal adult franchise, or we even call it as a universal suffrage. Okay. Yes. Next we can see that when was universal adult franchise granted. So in some countries, different year they started to adopt it. Okay. Coming to India, when we started to adopt, we got independence in the year of, yes, exactly children, 1947. But when we started to adopt this democracy exactly, yes, you people are correct, that is 1950. Same way, you just go through your textbook, the page number 11, you can just go through this years when the which country has got the universal adult franchise, which year. Okay, yes. Next, by 1900, only New Zealand was the only country where every adult had voting right. So by the end of this 19th century, 1900, the only New Zealand, the country New Zealand had got its citizens to voting right. All the adult citizens having the voting right. But you can see in the last, the session, we have seen that even in the 20th century, we can see the many, the country started to adopt the democracy. But there is a, the condition that whatever the other countries were following this democracy was not a complete democracy. That we'll call it as a partial democracy. Okay, they did not following the proper, the voting rights which was given to the all the adults of the people. Okay, see, early democracies were established in Europe, North America, and Latin America. Okay, so this early in the beginning democracies they started to adopt in Europe, North America, and even in the Latin America. Yes. So finally, we understood how it has been started. Next, we'll see that the end of colonialism. So finally, we know what is the meaning of colonies or the colonialism. Okay, because even India is also or was also one of the colony for British people. So this in detail we have studied in your 8th standard history, last 2 chapters. Hope you guys remember. Yes, children. So, we'll see that in Asia and Africa, most of the countries were colonies under the control of European nations. So, what happens? The most of the Asian continent, the countries along with the African countries, the most of the countries were under the control of European nations. Like India. Even India is also, was also under the control of British people. Okay, then people of the colonized countries had to struggle to achieve independence. So this and all we have studied so many times. Okay, the people under the colonialism, they were struggling a lot to get the independence because they were like slaves. They were under the British people or the European people. So they were expecting independence and the freedom. Okay. And our country was one of the few colonies where people carried a nationalist struggle to liberate the country from the colonial rule. So as we already know that India was also one of the colonies of British. And even we have learned many things, how our the leaders, our freedom struggles happened and how we struggled a lot to get or to liberate India. Understand? So this and all we have already learned in your previous classes. That is what here they are telling. Okay. Many countries became democracies immediately after the Second World War in 1945. So even this we have studied in your previous classes, but let me just brief you people. So once this Second World War started, the maximum European countries involved in the Second World War. So that time they started to give much importance for this World War. Okay, so that's the reason what happened. They started to use the resources of their colonies and they lost the interest to control the colonies and they gave much and more importance for the war. So at that time in many colonies they started to revolt against this European countries. So that time what happened, at the end of this Second World War, finally the many countries or the many colonies became independent. Okay, by the end of Second World War we can see that. And the next thing here, India achieved independence in 1947. What's the date, children? Yes. August 15th, 1947, and embarked on its journey to transform itself from a country to a democracy. So, we got independence in the year of 1947. From it started to transform the country to a democracy. Then we started to adopt democracy in the year of 1950. Yes. So, here they are just giving one example about a country, Ghana. So Ghana used to be a British colony named Gold Coast. So we all know that even Ghana is also one of the colony for the British people. They used to call it as a Gold Coast. So it became independent in 1957. So India got independence in 1947, but Ghana got the independence in the year of 1957. It was the first African country to be independent. So we have to understand here, Ghana is one of the first African country to be independent. So finally it started to inspire other African countries to struggle for freedom. So anyhow, this was the first country to get independence or the freedom. So by seeing Ghana, other African countries also started to struggle to get the freedom. Okay, guys, few people understood, right? Very good, children. Next we can see, one of the best leader in Ghana. See, the way Nkrumah was a teacher and he was a son of goldsmith. So he was active in the independence struggles of his country. So he was one of the active member in the independence struggles which happened in Ghana. And after independence, Nkrumah became the prime minister and the president of Ghana. So finally, once this Ghana became independent, Nkrumah became the prime minister and even the president of Ghana. Then he was a friend of Jawaharlal Nehru and inspiration for democrats in Africa. So by seeing this Nkrumah, many other African people in African countries, they started to struggle to get the freedom. And he was one of the friend of Jawaharlal Nehru, whom you will call it as Chacha Nehru. Okay? Yes. But unlike Nehru, he got himself elected president for life. So finally, unlike the Nehru, even Nkrumah elected president for life. But very soon after, in 1966, he was overthrown by military. So what happens? Very soon in Ghana also, they started to adopt the democracy. This was the first country to adopt democracy in the African country. But in the year 1966, this democracy has been overthrown by the military people. Okay, so that is what we were discussing. Like Ghana, most countries that became democracies after gaining independence had a mixed record. They could not remain democracies for long. So finally what happened? Many countries, they adopted this democracy, but they could not sustain for the longer time. Understand? Very soon they started to shift for the Communist Party, or they started to shift for the dictatorship. The same way how we can see in Ghana. The democracy has been overthrown by military.